Welcome to the weekend warm-up on the Winners Enclosure. It's certainly been an informative week so far. We've had some interesting trials regards the Guineas, and that very much rolls on into the weekend. I'm pleased to be joined by Chris Dixon. And Chris, it's been interesting, isn't it? It's a great time of year. I love it.
Tremendous time of year, Emma. We've had some really good quality action, haven't we, at Newmarket over the course of the last couple of days of the Craven meeting. More to come ahead of the point that we're recording this as well. So very much looking forward to that. I thought that Mutasabek was particularly impressive the other day in that conditions event at Newmarket. The time of that race looked very good, and he was a very impressive winner. So it looks like Charlie Hills has got another good horse on his hands, really, and he's had a few of them, hasn't he, in recent times. So he was one that very much caught the eye at Newmarket on what, as I say, has been a really interesting few days of racing now. I'm very much in flat mode now, but we are having a look ahead to a little bit of back end jumping up at air as well.
I'm totally with you. Yeah, I'm very much thinking trials at the moment, but we haven't got the decks as yet because obviously the main cards on Saturday have been moved to Sunday. So if we do mention a horse that isn't running, then that's why. It's not just because we're making it up as we go along. But we'll, as you say, we'll start with the Scottish National meeting up at Ayr, which I just said does take place on Sunday now. And it's not a surprise that the Scottish National is a pretty open race.
Yeah, as you would expect, it is going to be open and very competitive, isn't it? I think yourself and Martin did the preview earlier on in the week, looking ahead to this, and he was keen on the chances of Vintage Clouds, who's already did Martin a good turn at a big price at Cheltenham. So the cheap pieces were on that occasion. You would think when declarations come around, they'll retain that headgear, which really seemed to have a positive impact for him. And off a £7 high mark, if he gets in that same sort of rhythm, then he should have a very good chance, you would think. You know that he's a very strong stayer. He's still feasibly enough handicapped on his old form. And I would say that he will go into the Scottish National with a solid chance. But as you say, it is an open race in which lots of horses, I think you can make some sort of a case for.
Yeah, talking about the Ultima form, the first and third, they're reopposed, but obviously the trip is further this time around. Soldier of Love, I thought, was a very interesting horse. To me, a huge contender because he's very ground dependent. They pulled him out at Cheltenham because they felt it wasn't quick enough for him. He's won 4 of his 8 chase starts so far. He's been given a bit of a break. I think he should be an absolute tip-top form from the return. From a bit of a break, and I think he's, as I say, on spring grounds. I think he is quite an interesting contender there. The Scottish Champion Hurdle at 225. We've got County Hurdle form here, and that race is looking pretty strong in the shape of Milkwood, who was third.
Yeah, and he's bringing forward that particular form line, which does look pretty strong, doesn't it? And you'd have to think that he's going to come into this with a solid enough chance. Obviously, the Scottish Champion Hurdle, unlike the Irish Champion Hurdle and the English Champion Hurdle, is a handicap. So that's the key difference. And Milkwood will be running off a mark of 142, which is just a £2 higher mark than he had at Cheltenham. So he's a horse that travels very well through his races. If he gets a strong pace to aim at, then he's probably seen to best advantage. The horse I like to look up here is Calico for Harry and Dan Skelton. He's an unexposed, improving novice. They'll be having his first go in a handicap here, but he was a good quality flat horse in Germany. He's been going the right way over hurdles. I know he got beaten at Kempton on the middle one of his 3 starts so far, but that race didn't pan out particularly well for him. It's a real pace-favouring track, and he just wasn't in the right spot as it went. I think he did well to get as close as he did in the end. He's won either side of that, and he's looked like a horse with plenty of pace and plenty of gears. And I think that even though it's onto quicker ground, his flat-based background, even though in Germany he raced on a sound surface a few times, he will bounce off the conditions. And I thought that with Dan and Harry Skelton often doing well at this meeting and in real search of winners at the minute for Harry to try and secure the Jockeys Championship, that Calico would be going there all guns blazing and with a good chance. I think he's better than a mark 139.
I was just about to say every winner counts with Harry. The bookmakers seem to think he has it in the bag with just a couple in front now of Brian Hughes. Do you think he looks likely to now stretch his lead?
Yeah, I've always felt really that given the amount of ammunition that he's going to get, Dan Skelton has so many horses that would have been ready for the spring, saved away from the winter ground, that could be on nice marks, or novices that, you know, they can go and defy a penalty, or they just haven't had their chance yet. He's going to have so much ammunition, and he will want more than anyone for his brother to be champion jockeys. He's really invested into the idea, isn't he? More so than anyone that Brian Hughes has in his corner, I suppose. And I think that is the key difference, really. And I think he'll get on, just from his own stable, without looking for outside rides, he will get on so many good chances that might be enough to see him home. And he's got his nose in front now, hasn't he? And I think it'll probably stay there.
Okay, and at 3 o'clock, the future champions Novices Chase. I mean, I guess the key question here is All Mankind is likely to be favourite. Is he going to stay 2.5 miles, this free-growing sort of front runner?
That's the question, isn't it? I think on balance, given the position that he's likely to have in the market, I'd rather say that he might not stay the extended 2.5 miles. It is 2 mile, 4.5 furlongs, so it's a full half mile really than what he's gone over in the past, and he can be quite exuberant. He'll give himself a chance of putting the others to the sword just because his jumping is so good, and he will get into a good rhythm, I'm sure. So it won't be an easy horse to peg back, but I think that Tamrock de Matin has pretty much all the attributes to be able to sit in behind him. His jumping has looked good, get into a nice rhythm himself, and he might just have a little bit more stamina. I was impressed with him at Kempton when he last won in February. They aimed him at this since skipping the other big spring festivals at Cheltenham and Aintree. And I think this is the right race for him, really. And I think that as a horse that's only had 3 starts of offence as well, he's still unexposed and open to progress. And I think Tamrock de Matin might just be the way to go.
I totally agree. To me, at the prices, he's much more appealing. You know he stays because he's won over 2.5 before. And as I say, there have to be doubts about the talented All Mankind stepping up in distance. We're going to switch our attention now to the flat, because we are in flat mode, and look to Sunday's card at Newbury. We've got 3 group races there, and we're going to start off with what was known at 135 as the John Porter. Very interesting race because Mark Johnson, he's got his team in great form. I think 26, 28, 25% strike rate over the last couple of weeks. And Thunderous is a horse who was quite impressive and quite taking when he won the Dante, but we haven't seen him since. Any vibe or word on him?
I mean, obviously they're going to be in a position where they feel that they've got him right to be sending him out for his return to action, but it has to be a bit of a worry that we haven't seen him since the Dante. I'm not quite sure what the issue has been. I think he'll need to better what he did in the Dante in order to go on and win a John Porter. And there are other horses that are progressing nicely. You'd be pretty sure that he's not going to be found wanting for fitness. And the Dante performance does put him ballpark of where you're going to have to be at to win this race. But I think other horses might just have his measure as this race goes, just on the basis that they're still progressing themselves and have a little bit more in the tank. So I can't be against Thunderous because I do like the way that he finds the pressure at the end of his races. I suspect that there is a little bit more to come from him. And the 1.5 miles, 2 furlongs further than he's gone before might well bring about some improvement from him. So I guess there are real positives there, but I think I'd just lean elsewhere.
Okay, I quite like the chances of William Haggis's Al Arsi here. William's got his team in great form, 36% strike rate over the last couple of weeks, 3 winners at Newmarket yesterday. He won the Bahrain Trophy. He then disappointed when he went to the Gordon Stakes at Goodwood, and he travelled well. Maybe he was a bit keen and then basically didn't find an awful lot. But he has got big race entries, and he could just be one of those improving horses. And to me, I'd rather, again, at the prices, be backing him when you know there hasn't been such a problem stroke issue that there was with Thunderous. Then at 2:10, the Dubai Duty Free, we'll get into the trials here, the Fred Darling as we know it. Several of last year's good fillies are lining up, well, we hope, for this, which is always a good thing. Alcohol Free, last year's Cheveley Park winner, I think sets the standard and will probably go off favourite. Andrew Balding, another trainer who's got his team in really good form. The trip. So 7, I think, will be as far as she does stay. I don't think she'll stay a mile, but it's slightly in doubt, isn't it? What do you think? I'm
Yeah,
somewhere in the middle.
yeah, I think it is in doubt. She could get away with it. I think she hit the line strong enough at Newmarket, didn't she, at the back end of last season when she took the Cheveley Park, and she was definitely finding for pressure at Salisbury the time before that when she got beaten. But she does have a pretty fast pedigree. She's related to a horse that won over a mile and a little bit further than a mile, actually. But that horse was by Camelot, who really is a middle distance stamina influence. She's by No Nay Never, who's a speed influence. And so I think that is a genuine concern whether or not she will get home. She's got the course form, and the ground will probably be about perfect for her. But stamina, I think, is the worry. Cultham was behind her at Newmarket, obviously, in the Cheveley Park last year. But the reason that she got beaten was she was just too keen. And again, I think going up in trip, that has to be a little bit of a worry. So it leaves the race fairly open looking. I wonder whether Isabella Giles could be the way to go. She was below form on her final start of last season. The ground was perhaps too testing given how hard she pulled that day. I think you'd scratch that run off. And if you judge her more on her previous progressive profile, which included the win in the Rockfell over this trip of 7 furlongs, then she would have a good chance. And she's going to stay this far and further. And I think Clive Cox will have a pretty straight. So I'm going to go with Isabella Giles here.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Easy winner of the Prestige Stakes. And then, as you mentioned, she then won the Rockfell over 7. I think you can put a line through that last run. Lucid Dream is another one that really could be anything for Roger Charlton. 2 from 2 was pretty green on her debut, and then, well, it's hard to know what she did winning a tree runner conditions race next time. But no, to me, Isabella Giles, again at the prices, is quite attractive. The Colts trial, what we call the Greenham Stakes, 245. Shindit is likely to be favourite here for Richard Hannon. An interesting horse, won the Champagne Stakes. All wins have come over 7 furlongs, and then probably didn't have the best of runs through in the Dewhurst. And again, the ground was pretty soft that day, so you can forgive that.
Yeah, I think you can. And he'd looked a really nice progressive horse prior to that, hadn't he? He was a debut winner at Doncaster. He went on to Ascot and obviously won on the back of that. And then his marquee performance really was, as you mentioned, in the Champagne Stakes at Doncaster. I think you can scratch Newmarket on his final start. He just didn't run his race in the end, and he wasn't ultimately given a hard time. I think he is the horse that they've all got to beat. I think Alchemate has got a massive amount of talent, Emma, but I'd worry that he's going to be an out-and-out sprinter, really, and 7 furlongs might just stretch him. I boiled it down to Chindit and Fundamental. Pretty torn between the two. Fundamental does have race fitness on his side. I was at Chelmsford when he won last time out, and I thought he was pretty impressive. I think he was value for more. He looked straightforward, and I think 7 furlongs is going to be his trip. I marked him down as a potential Jersey horse on the back of that. I know he won over a mile last time out, but I think he's going to be better over this sort of distance. And it's just the balancing act of whether Fundamental's race fitness and conditioning can tip the balance in his favour ahead of Chindit, who's making his seasonal return.
Yeah, he's certainly an interesting horse. He's out of Integral, who, of course, herself was a very good mare. And I thought he was very interesting indeed. Yeah, Marcus Tregoning's horse, he actually won this race in 2019 with Mohair, who then went on to win the Sussex Stakes. But to me, there would be massive doubts. He was too keen when he flopped to the Dewhurst. He'd won the Mill Reef the time before. But he's, by showcasing out of a Dutch Art mare, closely related to lots of sprinters, I just think 7 furlongs could be a furlong too far. And I thought the other one worth mentioning was Nando Parado, who was the Coventry winner at 150 to 1 as a maiden. Was then second in the Prix Mornay, proving it was no fluke at all. And then was a well-beaten second in the Jean-Luc Lagardère. But very testing ground that day. I thought that was another one that came bang into the mix in what looks quite an intriguing race. So, yeah, Nando Parado was what I was going to go for there. But all in all, lots of clues, very, very interesting times, and we'll have a slightly clearer idea of the Guineas come Sunday night.
This week's always an informative one, so by the time we get to Sunday night, a good few of the key trials have taken place over the course of the week, and it will be time to start having a proper think about what you fancy for the guineas, which I imagine is something that we might be touching on Monday's Steward's Enquiry.
Certainly. Chris, thank you very much indeed. Enjoy the weekend, and I hope that we've steered you in the direction of a winner or two.